Welcome to Through the Fire with Angelina Paul, a space where every story matters, every voice is honored, and no journey is left untold. Let's journey together through the flames, uncovering the beauty of redemption, restoration, and the unbreakable human spirit. Well, welcome to Through the Fire with Angelina Paul. I am your host, Angelina Paul. Welcome, Bexx. It is so lovely to have you here today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling totally fine. I'm excited to talk and share.
Awesome. So I have this practice that I have started doing with the podcast. Every time that I have that conversation when we're preparing, there's always something that happens that sticks with me. And after we leave each other's presence, and I go and start preparing the questions that are going to come about, I'm praying and I am wanting to hear what the Holy Spirit will give me as far as how we should flow and how we should start. So I know that you're a very spiritual person. And so this is what was coming through to me as I was preparing as the place for us to start. So before we dive into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to honor our parents and our ancestors who have lived through war and unrest and unimaginable challenges. Their resilience, sacrifices, and strength laid the foundation for the freedoms and opportunities that we have today. I wanted to specifically go there because of your father. I felt that I needed to honor him. He is a survivor of World War II. And it also reminded me of something that I wrote in my book. So this is the inspiration of the title for this podcast. My book is Through the Fire with Angelina Paul that I wrote in 2016. But there's something that I wrote in there where I also honor my parents on their journey of fighting for our freedom. So I'm just going to read what it says. I was going to prepare something else, and then I thought, well, I wrote this in 2016. It's still very relevant. And so since the Holy Spirit gave me to start here, this is what I'm going to read. So this is what I write on page 33 of my book. And this is me introducing myself to the world. And so I say, on November 23rd, 1977, in Chimoio, Mozambique, a young Zimbabwean mother was seen clenching onto her newborn baby and was running as fast as her legs could carry her. Tears were streaming down her cheeks while yelling out for someone to help her, or at the very least help her newborn baby. This young mother was surrounded by thousands of other men, women, and children who were screaming out for the same help. In the atmosphere, all that could be heard were echoes of thousands of voices crying and screaming in deep distress and trauma. This particular place was supposed to be a safe camp where Zimbabwean exiles participating in the liberation movement were being housed. At that time, they were running from the raining bullets being showered down by the aircraft above them. Thousands of men, women, and children lost their lives on this day. This incident was recorded in history as the Chimoio Massacre. The woman in this story is my courageous and yet gentle mother, Martha Tembo Karimatsenga. And the 8-day-old newborn baby is me. I was born on November 15, 1977 in Beira, Mozambique, during a chaotic and uncertain time for my people. I'm the last of 6 children. I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and we are proud Zimbabweans. I like to tell this story to introduce myself because this story is my personal introduction to the truth about God's mercy and grace fully manifesting in how He spared mine and my mother's lives. How I imagine the events of this day in 1977 allows me to feel the strongest vibration that lets me know that I am here to serve and that I will fulfill my God-given purpose. Within this story, I find the place to go for a truthful and authentic assessment of all my life's trials and triumphs. I'm positive that this beginning is to tell me that all the trials of this life are truly meant to announce the coming of great triumphs that will serve many and transform lives forever. I'm reminded that at 8 days old, I could have been killed. I'm also reminded that my life was spared where many lives were lost for the very freedom that I have enjoyed. That even if people during this time lived in a chaotic and uncertain time, their service and sacrifices have given me and many others the privilege to live our lives with much less chaos and uncertainty. 3 years after the Chimoio massacre, our family returned home after independence. My father remained in prison in Mozambique because of his participation in the movement, but was later released. I want to honor your father, who passed away in 2019, my parents, my mom and my dad, for the work that they did to be survivors of such traumatic incidents. And so that's what came to me to start our episode today.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So I know that you're someone who believes in authenticity, being legit, and in your own words, and full of bad assery. So your dad is German, your mom is from the Honduras, and they had a 20-year age gap. Your mom is a kidney transplant recipient who was sick for most of your childhood. You grew up in a home shaped by your parents' traumas, your dad's experiences during World War II, and your mom's health challenges. How did their stories shape your upbringing?
They grew up as very scared and mistrusting people because in their upbringing, everything was in secrecy. Dad didn't actually know what was going on. He knew that there was a war.
Yeah.
And the family was moved a lot. And they ended up coming to Canada in the mid-60s, early to mid-60s. And he, it really just shaped seeing people's true colors when you're really pushed up against a wall and you're fighting to eat, you're fighting to feel safety, you're fighting to keep the family together. So his dad was involved in the German military.
Yeah.
So he was he was not on the good side of things.
Yeah.
But he wasn't around a lot. And when he was, it was very cruel and it was very abusive.
Yeah.
So when a person experiences those kinds of abuse and traumas, they change the fabric that you're made of. Like you don't come out of those kinds of things normal.
Yeah.
And I say normal as like a medium of the average.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really subscribe to like what is normal, but just what is the average and reasonable things.
Yeah.
So mom grew up in a boarding school from 5 years old to high school. And so she actually wasn't around her family. And she was raised in an area where it was the cool thing to do to send your kid away.
Yeah.
So she grew up not being parented and being given kind of whatever she whenever she wanted.
Yeah.
And so when my parents got together and had us, my sister and I, they were still very mistrusting of other people. Like we didn't go to daycare. We didn't really have like a lot of family friends. It was fairly isolated.
Yeah.
Because when mom got sick, dad became the primary caretaker and I was 6 or 7 years old when mom got sick.
Wow.
So having that kind of living in that kind of like threat response of I need to protect my family. I don't like things are uncertain. I'm speculating that those kinds of feelings came back to Dad.
Yeah.
And he was just in fight mode.
Yeah.
And we grew up like him being very agitated and irritated. So we grew up, it was an abusive household.
Yeah.
There was a lot of yelling and shouting and name calling and even like physical touch out of anger. And it I don't know. It changed who I was.
Yeah. It also changed the fabric of who you are.
Yeah.
And you mentioned to me that you learned to stand up for yourself early in life due to this abusive home environment. How did that experience impact your view of relationships and resilience as you grew older?
It made it hard for me to trust.
Yeah.
And my threat response is when I feel threatened, I automatically arm up and I'm ready to fight.
Yeah.
That's how I was built.
Yeah.
Whereas my sister is more fawn or freeze.
Yeah.
Her first instinct isn't necessarily to fight.
Yeah.
Right away.
Just hide. Yeah.
Yeah. And so having to stand up for myself.
Yeah.
It made me realize that I have a voice.
Yeah.
And that that voice can do something.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I took action against my dad.
Yeah.
I told a safe adult, my teacher, who then who had the appropriate response of calling the ministry.
Yeah.
And they subsequently came and spoke to him and told him what was up and
how things should be.
And it didn't happen again until many years later again, probably like 4 years later, where I had to stand up to him again. And that was the last time, because that was probably the first time I confronted him specifically. And I was about 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And I think he was just taken aback by the intensity that his daughter was. I think he was having a moment of looking in the mirror and being like, oh shit, like
she's a fighter. Yeah. And probably seeing how he had to fight as well.
Yeah.
Having a father that may have also been strict and maybe didn't necessarily use the right ways of discipline.
Yeah.
Can you tell me one of these incidents that you're standing up to your father? Can you describe to me what had happened and what you said?
It was common for him to threaten using a 2x4 out of like that he was going to use a 2x4 like as part of the threat.
Yeah.
And so I don't specifically remember what we were arguing about.
Yeah.
But he made that threat and I turned around to him and I said, how about I hit you with a fucking 2x4?
Oh, wow.
But it was like loud.
Yeah. And you meant it.
And I was like standing across from him. Like I was like prepared to fight.
Yeah.
And he just kind of looked at me and said, I'm out of here. And he walked away and went outside. But that incident, and then also being 12 years old, and my sister and I were arguing in the morning before school. It was winter. It might have even, it was winter time, and we were arguing about something, and Dad just rushed out of the bedroom and grabbed the closest kid and just like picked me up by the shoulders and just threw me into the wall.
Oh.
And I remember seeing Mom And she was just like a stunned bunny. Like, she did not know what to do. And
Yeah.
I'm like looking at her, my jaw just like dropped to the floor. I'm like, you got nothing to say right now? Like, he just fucking manhandled me.
Yeah.
I'm a little kid.
Yeah.
And like, what? And she just did not know what to do. And that broke my trust. That was
Yeah.
one of the things that had broken my trust. That
And maybe reinforced
Yeah.
some of those things that you had grown up learning from your parents about not trusting.
Yeah.
And so now it kind of feels like, oh, okay, this is real. So maybe I really shouldn't trust her because she didn't step up and defend me.
And when it really counted, you know,
Yeah.
especially protecting me from somebody, you know, that is supposed to be a safe, like, parental figure, like,
Yeah.
you know, and it's, as a parent now, I have a different understanding of things. I have empathy for what dad went through in his upbringing and
Yeah.
being like, oh, wow, like, that actually does change a person.
Yeah.
And it changes their behavior and things can happen.
Yeah.
And you're not even really cognizant of the actions that are happening.
Yeah.
And so I think I think she's just never really been put in a situation before where she's had to like stand up for her own person
Yeah.
against somebody.
So she couldn't stand up for somebody else.
Yeah.
Even if it was her daughter.
Yeah.
I completely get that. And what you're saying, that now as a parent, you understand, you have some understanding of what might have been going on with your father or even with your mom. It really lets me know that this is the reason why we started where we started. I don't know if you feel it, but I really feel a very strong presence in this place right now. And I think that when we are parents or even just as humans and we're going through life and we're trying to do all sorts of things and we're filtering things through trauma and maybe upbringing and all sort of, social pressures, sometimes we leave this world, and when we are on the other side, we want to be able to say sorry. We want to be able, I believe that you'll see things more clearer there. And so I feel that when our ancestors step up, sometimes it's to say, I hope you recognize that I am very apologetic to how I impacted your life. And it's just them saying, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'd like to hear the words instead of.
Yeah. And that's why for me, having lost my mom and my daughter a year apart, I shared this in the podcast before that I feel that my mom, because of the generation she grew up in, women were taught to really hold things in and not really be expressive. And she was a beautiful human, but I think there was a lot that she left that was unsaid. So many things that were unspoken. And I described, even in the previous podcast, that the very last moment that my mom took her last breath, my eldest sister or eldest cousin sister was the one who was in the room. And she said, she made this expression like where you feel like you've run out of time, but there was something else left to say. Yeah. And so even though it's not the same that people are there present to say those words, I think it is still something when they step up, even from the other side, to say that they're sorry or to show up in the experiences that we're having. So with that, I want to ask you, losing your dad to dementia in 2019 must have been difficult. How did that loss affect your relationship with your mom and your perspective on family?
Mom had a hard time. Like, I was never close with dad. He was a hard person to, he was just like closed off.
Yeah.
And I think more so to me than to mom and my sister.
Yeah.
At least that's my perception of that.
Yeah.
And so I was sad when he died. but I had this moment of kind of like clarity shortly after he moved on.
Yeah.
Where I envision this like vibrating ring, and this ring is a musical round.
Yeah.
And each person, this vibrating ring is just energy, it's voices, it's whatever that makes us move.
Yeah.
And Dad's part was just finished.
Yeah.
So he didn't need to keep on keeping on. He was that was his piece, and he was done.
Yeah.
And we have to let people move on to the next whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing how dementia changed him and for how long it had a hold on him.
Yeah.
I was glad that he was free of it, because nobody deserves to suffer like that when you have all the things that you gain throughout your life. You can't even look at a picture and recognize somebody.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't experience those kinds of joy or remember what smoked sausage smelt like.
Yeah.
Like being able to experience those kinds of things. So I felt relief.
Yeah.
I didn't feel grief.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, grief is part of the process, but it wasn't something that really held me down, or that was something that I just allowed myself to process it. I don't think it really hurt my relationship with Mom. She has always had a hard time dealing with grief.
Yeah.
I'm a very expressive person. My family is not expressive. And I think that comes from their trauma of there's no safe place to let this out. I just have to hold it in.
Yeah.
And my sister was born with that too, which makes me sad, because I'm like, it is so much easier when you let it out and let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. And I think because I have this kind of view, I don't want to hold on to things.
Yeah.
We're human and it happens to us anyway, so we do. But when we're given an opportunity, like even right now, like that missing puzzle piece of, you know, what you were saying about the presence in the room and all of that.
Yeah.
That for me is a missing puzzle piece, and I needed to hear that. I needed to have that piece of information shared with me.
Yeah.
You know, just like you shared yesterday, the God of my understanding. I was like, that was a missing puzzle piece for me.
Yeah.
That I needed to have that information, and I shared that with my friend, and she was like, "Oh my God, I love this. I love this idea. I love what that represents."
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we share these kinds of things. You know, like, sorry, Mom and sister, that I'm doing this. Too bad. This is my life. I get to tell my story.
Yeah.
So
very important. One thing I'm so excited about today with you is that you have a way with words, and you've just really mastered how language is very important. And so I'm really watching for that as you are speaking. And you just said something that I've never heard anyone say before. I've heard people say, you know, my loved one has passed on, has passed away, has transitioned, has gone to heaven, is with God, is with Jesus, is with the ancestors. I've heard many versions, but never they moved on. Why do you think you describe your father's passing as he moved on? To me, I get a sense of continuation and continued existence. Can you tell me what that statement means for you?
Well, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So that's a fundamental of physics.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's any different. I don't see why humans are exempt from that. We don't know what creates consciousness. We don't know where it comes from. We have no idea. But the fact that we come into this world and we get turned on. When the lights turn out, like it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to go somewhere. So I just like to think that in this life, everyone is born.
Yeah.
Every single person on this planet has been birthed.
Yeah.
We are all going to die. I don't want to be afraid of death.
Yeah.
I want to meet it like somebody that I'm supposed to meet in my next chapter.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I moved on, because I want the story to continue. I don't have to know what that is.
Yeah.
But I just want that to continue on.
Okay. Do you want to wipe your nose a bit more? I don't want this episode to come out and you have like a big booger and you're like, Angelina, you could have said something in the whole thing. So
take me as I am.
Just trying to be a good friend.
You are. You're amazing. I love this. We're friends. We're friends.
We are. When you talked about, relief when your father passed on, especially because of how he was suffering with dementia, I do totally relate to that. I felt relief. I struggled. I felt relief, but I struggled to express it because what is generally expected, at least in my community and my close-knit family, is grief and massive amounts of grief.
Right.
And not all the other feelings that do come with grief, because we know sometimes people are grieving are angry
Yes.
with God,
Yes.
even angry with the person for leaving and not having fulfilled whatever their expectations were.
Yeah.
And these are not feelings that are usually encouraged.
Totally.
But for me, it was relief. One of the things I felt relief for my mom was that her and her dad and my dad had been such great matriarch and patriarch, and they'd taken care of their family. They brought a lot of people up, helped many people. There are people who are still in jobs that they got through my parents, or living in homes that my parents helped to build. And, their children have gone on to higher education that my parents facilitated, all these kind of things. And I felt that because I was so close to my mom and would talk every single day, that she felt that as people had grown up and evolved and had families of their own, that there was no longer an appreciation for what she had done with her husband, and now my dad had passed on, so it's like it's all on her. I think she felt that there was a lot of ingratitude with the people around, and she'll talk about things like, hey, just passing by to say hello, just if I helped you go through university and you get your diploma, you get your degree, maybe just an invite to the day that you walk on the podium.
Yes.
Like things like that, because she had really held on to those things as those successes or achievements of her life, and being taken out of those things because people are evolving. And I think most of the people didn't do it spitefully, but, we grow up and we move. Like I've moved to Canada. I'm not in contact with most of the people that I grew up. Do I want to know what's happening in their lives? I do. Do I want them to know what's happening in mine? I do. But it's just that connection is lost. Yeah. But I think for my mom, she really grieved that a lot. And so I found myself in places where I couldn't comfort her in that regard. And I felt that in the end, there might have even been a little bit of bitterness toward that situation. And I think it also came from, we're taught and raised to be kind to people. But I think one thing about being a human being is that we want to be thanked. A lot of people say, no, I'll do this. And it doesn't even matter if you say thank you. And I think that's just wrong. Like gratitude does something for us. And it's good when we do things for people to say thank you. We want to be rewarded in that way. And I think that for my mom, her generation coming up, she was told that, she got married at 14. My dad had 13 siblings. She pretty much raised or helped to raise most of my dad's siblings. So you're told, be this good wife, be this, good partner to your husband. Your husband's needs come first, and all this and all that. And then there will be some sort of remuneration at the end, which might be in the very littlest gratitude. But then she's coming to the end of life and it's like, where's my paycheck? Right? And so I struggled to help her with that. And because it used to frustrate me a lot that I couldn't help her, I couldn't say, Mom, I can't help you. And so I took to anger. I was so angry. So I would push it against her. So I would say, why do you care? What do people say? Maybe people are like this. I made excuses for the people, or I would put it on her like, hey, you're just asking for too much, because I was struggling how to balance that. So when she passed, that was one of my relief was now she's at rest. She doesn't have to worry about these people that didn't do right by her. So I totally do see how that impacts us. What's your feeling around how we serve in this world and how people show us that gratitude? Like just after what I shared about my mom, do you think that's far in life? I know you and I, we just got here. I won't say we've been here for long. We just got here. But with what you've done so far, what are your feelings around people just saying, hey, thanks for what you did? And guess what? That job you helped me get, I got my first paycheck. How about we go for a coffee? How do you feel about that?
I think that this is it's an energy exchange.
Yeah.
And to find flow, everything's kind of got to be on the same wavelength. Yeah. Same page of the same book, reading the same thing. If we're not synced up, then or if we're not able to sync up, then things get really clunky. Yeah. And so I think that that's what therapy is for. Yeah. When you don't know what to do, you find a therapist.
Go to a therapist, because they went to school to know what to do, apparently.
Well, and the other thing too that the reason I'm a huge proponent of therapy is that they're not invested in an outcome. Yeah. When you have a relationship with your dad, or you have a relationship with your mom, and they're going through these kinds of things, and they want to lean, they want to lean on their supports, they want to lean on their family. I think that it sometimes can put an unfair amount of pressure. Yeah. Because the child in this situation may not actually have the skill set for what to do, because they haven't lived as long and they don't have that amount of information. Yeah. So I think to bring it back to what you had mentioned, it is important to say thank you. Yeah. It is important to acknowledge. It's important to validate. We're getting to that kind of way now in society. Really, the emphasis on validating people's experiences. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily mean their experience happened in reality the way that they perceived it. Yeah. But the mark that it left on them, it's doing something to them, and we have to do something about it. So if validating a person is step one, then fuck it. Yes, that was a really hard thing you went through. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support. Thank you. That reminds me, I have this, she's like a mom, and she came to my aid when I really needed somebody there, and she provided financial support, and I was just I'm eternally grateful for how she was able to rally the community to get around me, and to uplift me, and to help me heal and get better. It was super. Jackie, I'm forever grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. Awesome. So you are a first-generation Canadian. Yeah. What was it like growing up as a first-generation Canadian with such a diverse cultural background like your parents are?
Yeah.
From two different ends of the world.
Yeah. I would get the, what are you? Yeah. What are you? What do you mean, what am I? What are you? Human being? What? Yeah. I would get all different kinds of things. I didn't actually notice it so much. So a lot of my childhood was raised up on the coast. Yeah. And so it's super diverse. It's multicultural. You see more colored people than you actually see white people. Yeah. And so it you saw biracial families, you saw families of all different kinds of origins. Like, I didn't notice a difference.
Yeah.
And then we moved to the Okanagan.
Mm-hmm.
They're all white.
Yeah, they truly are. I just found out yesterday at my work Christmas party. I was like, please don't let me be the only Black person there. And I was, so.
Yeah. Right. Like, it just, yeah. So, as an adult now, I'm white passing.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I would get that all the time. They see me and my sister, and they're like,
they didn't know if you're Black, are you white, if you're mixed, what you mixed with.
Yeah.
All those things.
They want to know, what made you.
Yeah.
And to hear like racial slurs and all that kind of stuff, like as a kid, like I had to learn at a really young age, like,
you heard racial slurs? What they call you?
the N-word.
What?
I'm not even kidding. And this came from a colored kid in my class. He was the only other colored kid in my class. And I was like, why are you slinging that? Like,
oh my God.
Dude. Just,
no.
But where did they learn that, right?
Yeah.
Like, kid doesn't pick that up in a book.
Yeah.
You know, that is learned behavior.
Yeah.
So it was a small town. I won't name it because, don't want to cause a bad rap.
The town still exists.
The town still exists. But yeah, like, it's just, it's wild to me, It makes me feel, being white passing now, like it's, I see racial profiling in other instances. Like, I see like why people giving like double looks, or, like, I see it all the time. I was in Costco and there was this, trans woman, and this,
of course, we won't mention the town, but we will mention Costco.
Costco. And like this person was just like double taking, and I was just like, how many times are you going to look at this individual? Like,
oh my God,
they're just here with their pal doing whatever everyone else is doing on a Sunday at Costco.
Yeah.
And it was just
a bit much. Yeah, it still happens.
Happens all the time.
Oh my gosh. So you said that you felt like you didn't belong in certain spaces growing up.
Yeah.
You loved mechanics, you loved sports, playing in the mud. You weren't very interested in what the girls were doing. When did you first really start questioning your identity, and what was that journey like for you?
I didn't even know I could question my identity until I was an adult.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't even on the table.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, this is the way I am. This is what everyone's told me. I must be this.
Yeah.
And then inside, I'm like, wait, what's going on here? Like, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like I don't belong? Why do I feel like I'm awkward in situations, and I say and do the things that are unpopular, or question things. And it wasn't until the car accident in 2019 that this journey really started. When I met my therapist, who was helping me with depression and like the post-concussive symptoms that I was dealing with. She was helping me work through that. And she also happened to be a specialist in gender and sexuality. Okay,
so you identify yourself as non-binary and gender non-conforming.
Sure.
So this is what you're getting ready to share.
Yeah.
So go on.
And so it wasn't until I had this moment, maybe it was spirit, maybe it was, I don't know.
Yeah.
But something came to me and was like, you're not a woman.
Yeah.
You're not. You're a human.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like, so I talked to my therapist.
Yeah.
I was like,
talk to the therapist.
Well, I didn't have anybody. Like, I didn't have, like, I didn't know another non-binary person. I didn't know a person who was like gender non-conforming. Like I had no idea. I felt like I was like, I don't know where to go. Oh, but lo and behold, I have this therapist who also is a specialist in gender and sexuality.
Yeah.
She's going to know.
So now I can have that conversation.
Now I can have that conversation.
So how did coming out as a non-binary, gender non-conforming person impact your relationship with your family, especially your mom and your sister?
Yeah, so they were supportive in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then after me sending them information and welcoming them to explore what does this look like for them.
Yeah.
They seemed supportive in the beginning, but then once I decided that I was going to change my name, that really rained on their parade and making comments like, well, you'll always be my daughter. And I'm like, Mom, stop it. Like, get out of here.
So you're telling them, and they're getting this knowledge of what it is to be non-binary, and they seem to some extent to be willing to hear what you had to say. Yeah. But the moment that you say you're changing your name, that hits a nerve. So your name, your birth name is Erica Bush.
Yes.
But now you go with your name now is Bexx Salvador. Mm-hmm. And so can you tell me, in spite of how your mom, responded and said, no, you always be my girl, like that hit a bad nerve with her, what does this new name mean to you, and how does it reflect your journey as a person who identifies as non-binary?
That's a great question. I'm free. I'm free of expectations. I'm free of my name was all from childhood because Dad was such a yeller.
Yeah.
Anytime I would hear my name, it had a negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to get in shit if I heard my name. There was no, Erica, I'm so proud of you. Erica, that's a really beautiful creation you just made. Yeah. There was none of that.
Yeah.
And large in part, they didn't have the language. It didn't even occur to them. They were just like, we're gonna raise you so that you're not gonna go through what we went through. And granted, they took a massive step to change. For me, it was like I wanted to identify more with my cultural side of things.
Yeah.
Erica Bush is a very European name.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have more of an ethnic name.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really cute story that my very good friend Emma, her daughter Sophia, couldn't say Erica. Yeah. So she kept calling me Becca.
Okay.
And so that's where Bexx comes from.
Oh.
Yeah. So every time I see Sophia, we live in the same housing co-op. Yeah. I'm just reminded of that like little sweet face. Yeah. And I was like, right, Bexx. She
opened the door to your name.
Yeah. And then Salvador is actually one of my mom's maiden names. So...
Okay. Yeah, because for me, Erica Bush doesn't sound like a person with a German father and a mom from the Honduras. Yeah. But Bexx Salvador definitely does. So your mom, the name thing just totally was like, no, now this is not going to happen. Have there been so from that point on, was there any more further interest in knowing what this you standing up as your authentic self really means? Or was it just like, oh, we're cutting it off at the name and that's it, we don't want to hear it anymore?
There was a bit of a texting showdown between the three of us.
Yeah. You, your mom, and your sister.
Yeah, it was a texting showdown. Okay. And Mom suggested that I should seek psychiatric help.
Okay.
And I'm like, joke's on you, Mom. I have a psychiatrist. So there. And based on like how that conversation was going, like the reason I ended up cutting my family off was because my kid at the time, my eldest, she really was experiencing being non-binary.
Right.
And so
what does that mean, experiencing being non-binary?
She was testing it out. She was like,
curious.
She was curious. She wanted to go by they. She didn't want to go by she.
Yeah.
But still kept their name, you know, so that's cool. And I said to my family, like, look, you want to criticize me and tell me how you don't think it's a good idea that I change my name, or, you know, that this maybe is just a phase, or why would I want to do that, and question that. But at the end of the day, your job is really just to support me, like to support the relationship, like center the relationship first. Yeah. And support the person, not, well, I would never do that. Well, you've never probably even thought about wanting to change your name. Yeah. That's on you. Like that's your own path. The universe has opened this door for me, and I'm all about walking through. Yeah. And being my authentic self, like in my life. So if my parents and family could not support me, how the hell are they going to support my kid? Yeah. How, like, they're going to make comments, or if my kid asks them about gender identity, wants to have a conversation, mom or grandma or nana, why are you fighting with mommy? Yeah. You know? And then this whole conversation, like, so I was just like, no, if you're not cool with me, you're not cool with my kids either. Yeah. And so I just like drew a line in the sand. What
was your mom's thoughts toward your daughter also being curious and exploring, being non-gender conforming, non-binary?
So she was not supportive of it, because she's like, well, that's just confusing them. Kids don't know at that age.
Did she think that it was your fault?
Yeah, she thought it was my fault, and like that I was like influencing, at least, Mom, if you listen to this, that was my perception, is that you were judging me, whether you intended to or not.
Yeah, but that's how you felt.
But that's how I felt. Yeah. And so I was like, if they're not safe with their family to explore gender, then where do they have the space to do that if it's not at home? Yeah. I don't want them...
Because if they want to explore, they're still going to do it, whether you provide the space or not. Exactly. There will be somewhere, somehow, that space will be provided, and it might not be as guided as it could be in your home. Yeah. I get that. So embracing your authentic self while also modeling acceptance and authenticity for your children. I know that is very important to you. Can you elaborate a bit on that? On how you just create the space for your children, how you communicate with your children about that?
So I got a couple of books that help. One is called, Sex. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's literally what it's called. I have a picture
of it.
How
you said, sex. No, Bexx, I have no clue. What is that?
That's the title of the book, Sex. Mm-hmm. And I'll send you the picture of the book later. Yeah. It's a fantastic book for all ages and stages, and it's a neutral way. It's read in comic book style, and it has all these various topics of gender. What do body parts look like before puberty, during puberty, after puberty? Yeah, and so kids are naturally curious. Yeah, and they naturally want to know, like, Mom, why are you non-binary? And I'm like, well, sweetie, I just feel like I'm a human, and I don't want to be told what I should wear, what I shouldn't wear, how I should look, anything like that. Like, I am the authority of my body. So that's how
it is.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So one thing that you and I spoke about yesterday is that generally for maybe other people have changed. I'm just going to speak for myself and people who are like me. When we hear these terms, they automatically tend to always translate to the sexual act. And I've often said that many parents who have especially sons, they struggle with hearing that their child, is either gay or non-binary, because immediately their mind takes them to someone having sexual intercourse with their son, and based on how they are raised, it's not feeling natural. It doesn't, and then they struggle with just listening to anything else beyond that.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to you, and I'm thinking, to the world, you are this woman who's married to this man. Yay! Right? You're doing the right thing. This is what we're expecting. You have your children. You're raising your children with your husband. The two of you have just recently celebrated your 12th year anniversary. You've even renewed your vows. Why are we doing all this non-binary business? Like, girl, we're cool with who you are right now, right? That's what we're thinking. So when I shared that with you, I asked you, after coming out to your partner, he asked you this similar questions that I was asking yesterday. So are you going to leave the relationship? Are you wanting to have other sexual partners? And of course, your answer to both of those was no. So then my question becomes, why are we even doing this in the first place? Because I think that's what everyone is asking, like, oh, well, what's the point? You're still going to be, you and doing the same things. And this is a beautiful picture that we like that you've painted so far. Why are you smudging on the picture? Why
am I smudging away?
Why are you smudging away, girl?
Yeah.
This was a masterpiece.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because people like labels, they like categories, they seek to belong.
Yeah.
And they don't want to belong to just the general human race.
Yeah.
We all belong to that club. Like, there's nothing exclusive about that.
Yeah.
You're human, you're in.
Yeah.
Low bar.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being non-binary, it's the in between. It's like a liminal space. It's no, and that's why I also feel like gender non-conforming, because like there'll be times like I'm wearing a man's shirt right now, like and whatever, I'm wearing my partner's t-shirt. I didn't even think about it. I just I'll put that on today.
Just over here wearing all his clothes. Okay,
but then I show up in like sparkly earrings. I got my pants from earlier on.
And
like
you got your bling.
I got my nails blinged.
Yeah.
So I just want to be free to express myself and not be seen as wanting to attract attention. Right. I'm not seeking to attract. I'm not out there with a sign saying like, we're all queer, we're all non-binary. Like, I'm not out there. No, like, you walk through this world as you are, and I want to walk through the world as I am. Yeah.
So I know we're speaking generally about people and how they respond to how they might respond to such news, but I want to just pull it back to your partner. How did you navigate that conversation with him, and what has it taught you about communication in your marriage?
Oh, communication in marriage is like the foundation. Yeah. People think it's love. Nope. It's communication. It's not love. Like, I mean, you need to have a spark.
A moment of silence for love. Hilarious.
But
communication, it is key. I know people don't like to hear that, it sounds like one of those cliche statements, but if you're planning for this thing to last, it is.
Well, we've been together 18 years total, and we've been married 12.
Yeah.
If you want to take it from somebody who's had their ups and downs, and we continue to be each other's best friend, and we continue to choose each other every single day.
Yeah.
Mind you, there are some days where I'm like, am I really wanting to do this?
Yeah.
Yep. Nope, still am. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm still here for it. Okay, cool. You know, like we all have that permission.
Yeah.
So I said to Wit, hey, I think I'm non-binary. I want to explore this. I think I'm changing my gender.
Yeah.
I want my pronouns to be they, them.
Yeah.
I softened the blow to him by saying, maybe I'll be they, she.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, great. So like, I can still call you she. And I was like, bro, you just missed the fucking point. Like, it's just emotionally at that time and like mentally, we were just on two different wavelengths, you know? But once I was like, I want to stay in this relationship, like he needed to have that reassurance.
Yeah.
And so I gave him that reassurance. I'm like, yes, we are still a thing, you and me. I still want you. I desire you. I love you.
Yeah.
And I want to be this instead.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, are you going to get like surgery or something? And I'm like, no, I'm going to stay as is. Like nothing's changed. But that looks different for every person. Every non-binary person or gender non-conforming, they may have other choices that they want to make. And they're free to make those kinds of choices. Yeah.
This is just your choice.
This is just
because like you shared with me, even when you say earlier, you didn't know if you could challenge your sexuality or if you could, explore other different things. But even when you got married to your husband, you married the person. You married the person, not the fact that you're a man and a woman coming together. It was, this is the person that you love, the person that you have the best conversations with. Like you're saying, even now when you ask that question, in those moments, you're still saying that you choose him because of the person that he is, not because of his gender and not because of societal expectations. And so that's awesome. So we're going to talk about Wit for a moment.
Yeah.
So he was diagnosed with penile cancer and had to undergo a radical penectomy, which is the full removal of his penis and his nodes. Can you tell me a little bit about when that diagnosis came about and how you and him have navigated that space?
If Wit was telling this story, he would probably say, I was laying on the couch and I got the call from the doctor saying that I have cancer. I let Bexx continue their nap, and when they woke up, I told them, and then they ran out of the house. And I ran out of the house.
Did you?
Yeah, I ran out of the house.
Why do you think you did that?
Because I didn't know what else to do. I was like, I need to go cry and lose my shit somewhere else. And so I went to my other co-op friend, Holly, who's amazing human.
Yeah.
And I just dumped all my fears and insecurities.
What were they? Your fears and your insecurities in that moment?
That he was going to die, that this was terminal, that this is going to change our family, that I'm going to lose my best friend, that I'm going to have to explain this to my kids. Dad's going to die. He's going to die. Die. Like I was really, because I have a different understanding around cancer than he does, just because of my history and like being in the medical field and stuff. And he's like, you left me. And I'm like, I know. I'm really sorry.
How long did it take for you to go back home?
It was probably a couple of hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you walk into the house. Is this like a walk of shame, or you're still like just emotionally distraught, or are you now thinking? When I say walk of shame, I mean, are you now thinking, oh, maybe this wasn't the right response, or are you still like in that moment where this person that you have vowed to spend the rest of your life with, now there's this monster that is saying that this might not be possible?
Yeah. So I didn't feel like it was I mean, there was a little bit of shame and a little bit of guilt because he's like, I needed somebody. And I'm like, well, I didn't have the capacity to take on your emotions and what you were going through. I needed to let the pressure out in a safe space and not have that come out on you. Like you just got this monumental thing that's going to change literally the trajectory of all, like our whole family's lives.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I need to get the fuck out of here. I need to get the fuck out of here. I don't know what I'm doing. I just know I need to go. And I just showed up at my friend's door. I was like, hope to God she's there. And she was. And
it's wonderful that you actually have a friend that you could do that with. I know how precious that is. I have a friend that when my daughter passed away from cancer, she lives in Edmonton. That's my bestie. Shout out to you, Riri.
Love you.
Love you. The thing that she asked me, and I pray that if she's ever in that situation, she says that I'm that, but I'm yet to see myself in action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when I called her and her husband to tell them that my daughter had passed, the first question is, what do you need from me? And in that moment, like I usually am such a thinker, I have such great wisdom. So when I'm asking for things, I'm thinking about how it might impact you. Do you have the money of this? I'm just trying to make you be good. But in that moment, I was able to ask for what I needed. And I said, I need you here. And she said, that's it. And she was in Kelowna within the hour. Like she went to the airport. Her husband is booking the flight. She's on there. She gets to the airport. She has all this Bath and Body Works stuff, which we know is expensive. Bath and Body Works, do something about your pricing. And they tell her to throw, you know how painful that is when they're like, throw it away. She said she just told the officer, like, throw out whatever you need to throw out from my bag. I am getting on this flight and I'm going to Kelowna. Like she was here maybe an hour. It's a bit close, but an hour and a half, and she was here and we went through the whole process together. So knowing that there's somebody you can knock on the door and give and offload such a huge burden is really, really incredible. And even what you just said, that you knew that you didn't have the capacity. It takes me back to my situation with my mom. I did not have the capacity to support her, but because I somehow had that pressure of being the daughter that, the perfect daughter that could do it, I wasn't honest with her. And now, and when I think of it in hindsight, maybe if I just said that mom, I know this, you have a challenge with this, but I just don't know how I could support you. Maybe that would have been enough, or that would have sparked another conversation.
That's right.
So it's incredible to know that you're so in tune with yourself that you would know, like, I don't have the capacity. And it's so important because the things we say in the heat of the moment, especially in when you get such difficult diagnosis, you can't take them back.
No.
But with the person who's carrying the illness, those things etch in and they stay. And no matter what you do moving forward, there'll always be that little bit of doubt where it's like, but at the beginning, she felt like this, is she'll like this, or they might feel even a burden to support you.
That's right.
Instead of letting, them, you support them. So it's really incredible that you were able to do this for your husband. So I wouldn't be, before I move on concerning the diagnosis that your husband had received, and I know that he had to undergo a lot of surgery, and you had to deal with telling your children what was going on, and I want to hear about that. I wouldn't be authentic. In fact, we could not be friends when I leave here if I didn't ask you this question.
True.
And I think that if your girlfriends now haven't asked you that question, maybe you need to find out if they are really your friends. Was there anything in you that grieved the actual penis being taken away?
No.
Like, I want to know, girl, you didn't?
Nope.
You didn't?
But here's why.
You didn't for a moment be like,
nope.
You just thought he was going to die. You didn't think like, oh my God, before he dies, there won't be penis time. You didn't think like, okay, maybe I could get through the dying part because we all die. We're humans.
Yeah.
But dang, we ain't just going to get in some more.
Yeah, I know. No dick.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's done.
Okay.
Nope.
So now we'll be friends when I leave because I've been honest. I need to ask you that. So tell me why.
Yes.
Why did you not think that the penis is gone?
Yeah.
And this thing has served me.
Sure.
For a few years, we've produced some lives.
Yeah.
The pleasure, the intimacy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Because then I need this knowledge.
Because I was helping dress the wound. So, he didn't even know, he couldn't look to know what it looked like.
Oh.
And so to see the active cancer, to see sorry squeamish people, to see the byproduct that was created, and to see how angry that all that tissue was, why would I want him to have that attached to him, that thing that is making him sick,
affecting his body? How the cancer was eating up at his.
Well, it was growing. It wasn't eating away. It was growing out. And I was watching it grow every time I would change the wound, and it was multiple times a day. Like, he was having multiple showers before he went and had surgery, multiple showers a day. So I was having to redress and all that kind of stuff, because he couldn't do it. He couldn't get it at the angle. Like, it was just too cumbersome.
He couldn't reach there. You had to be just the primary caregiver in that regard. Yeah. So seeing the past and the horrible stuff and the growth and everything made you think, like, you know what, I want my person. Yeah.
And the other thing too, like, what I distinctly remember is when he got the day that he got the diagnosis, like that evening, we had a conversation actually about sex and intimacy, because I said, like, look, I want you to know that this doesn't change our relationship. We will experience pleasure. We will experience intimacy. We will do all these kinds of things. Yeah. However, we need to do therapy first. Yeah. Because it's a bit of a mind fuck to lose your dick. Yeah. And for all those people that are like, can he still orgasm? Yes, he can.
There you go, nosy people. I knew I wasn't the only one. Just saying.
So he still can. And the reason I'm being such a stickler on the therapy piece is because...
And we're talking about sex therapy.
Sex therapy, yes, thank you. Is that I want to lay the foundation so that we have the language and the communication. We don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And granted, is there a sex therapist that knows about penile cancer and how to deal with these kinds of things? Probably not. Yeah. But I'm sure there are people out there that have needed to have their penis amputated. I'm sure that there are people out there that have some kind of like erectile dysfunction, or, there's something just going on in their mind that they just struggle having a connection with that specific sex organ, but they can experience pleasure in other parts of the body. Yeah. What I miss is not the dick. What I would miss is the person. Yeah. And that's how I know that, like, I'm really in it for the long haul with him, is that I genuinely would actually miss him.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've talked about redefining intimacy versus pleasure, which was a huge lesson for me, because in all my knowledge and all this wisdom, I thought it was the same thing. And again, for those people who just don't own their stuff, you're going to say, no, you knew it. You didn't. And so you're redefining intimacy versus pleasure, and your plan is to work with a sex therapist. So how are the two of you approaching this journey together as a couple? Like, are you intimate now? Are you waiting to, what is it that you hope the sex therapist will help to establish for the two of you moving forward?
So are we intimate now? No. Kids are a major downer when it comes to intimacy. Yeah. We don't really have folks close enough to us that can, like, take the kids for sleepovers. Yeah. And the kids are still young. Like, my youngest is 3 right now. So he still is very much so, like, attached to me. Yeah. And that's part and parcel just for where we are in this journey. Like, once he's sleeping in his own bed, once, and we can have that time to reconnect. Yeah. I won't lie, it does feel awkward sometimes trying to reestablish that intimate connection, or like cuddling, or So we hold hands, we rub each other, like when we're laying in bed watching a show together, like, you know, we experience that kind of like physical touch, and tenderness. We hug, we kiss. So really it's just about embracing that other person. What I hope that a sex therapist brings to the table is just a way that we can establish communication. Because if he's going to feel awkward about something, I want to know how I can support him best through that awkwardness. So because of like cancer surgeries and chemotherapy, and then this reoccurrence that he just had, and this recent surgery, we're still not out of the woods. We find out tomorrow if he's going to need to do radiation and what that protocol looks like.
Okay.
So
he's still going through treatment.
So we're still going through treatment. And the last thing I want to do is put pressure on him or on the relationship in any kind of way to seek out sex specifically.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you had to tell your children what was happening with dad. How did you navigate explaining your partner's cancer and treatment to your children?
So I explained it in as simple terms as possible by explaining that cancer is a disease, and that it is unpredictable, and that we have really smart doctors that can try and help heal dad, and that there are certain types of medication that he has to take that's actually going to make him very sick.
So you're just really matter of fact in how you talk to them about that. Did your husband's diagnosis come after you had came out as non-binary and non-gender confirming? Okay. So it was after that happened. Okay. So what advice would you give to parents trying to lead their children with the openness and understanding that you do for your children?
Just be open.
Yeah.
Let them, like, ask them questions like, oh, are you curious about what is going on?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Like, really encourage them to be curious.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And in hiding or avoiding to tell them, or for lack of a better word, sugarcoating it, you're only going to create problems later on. And in fact, you're then going to teach your children that it's not okay to talk about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Kids can handle it. Like Shoshana was, what is she, 8? So she was 5, maybe 6 years old.
Yeah.
They have capacity to understand like what's going on, the whole death conversation, that kind of thing. It was also very matter of fact, like this kind of disease can take lives. Yeah. This kind of medication protocol, chemo, can take lives. Yeah. There can be complications. There's all different kinds of things. That's why we worry. That's why we're concerned, because we know that there's there are unforeseeable circumstances or results out there that potentially could come to fruition. Yeah.
So you made them understand why certain emotions are coming out and really leading by their cues as they bring in whatever areas that they're curious about. Then you would just give them the explanation as it is.
Or even like showing them a diagram, like showing them, like I have a atlas of the body. Yeah. And, we go through that, like showing them what these parts are so that they actually have a comprehensive understanding of like, in relation to them, what does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was listening to reading what you sent to me initially when I had reached out and was looking for resilient women to come on. And you talked about becoming a doula just 6 weeks postpartum. And that's incredible. So I wanted to know what drew you to that work and how did it shape your sense of purpose?
Becoming a doula, I had this moment when I was after Shoshana was born, and it's just like I felt this calling to become a doula. I wanted to support people through the grittiest and hardest parts of birthing.
Yeah.
And I found that labor is tough, and it hits every person differently. You know, some people can like ride the waves, others need coaching, others, you know, want to cry and sob or want to potentially even reject I don't want to be pregnant, I don't want to be in labor, so I wanted to be able to walk that with those people, so that they had a person that can normalize that behavior for them, so that they don't feel like they're being weird or awkward or unreasonable. Because birth brings out marriage, buying a house, death. Those are all really big things that bring out unpredictable behaviors in people.
And the support is really important. It's really important. So over time, you transition from being a doula to what you call a life doula. Can you explain what that means and how you support others in that role?
A life doula is just who I am. Yeah. I just genuinely want to support people. Yeah. If I'm having a conversation with a stranger and, you know, spirit says something to me, or the goddess, you know, strikes me with some kind of piece of information, I'm like, hey, like, I want to communicate this to you. I want to support you through that, in this just like smallest of exchanges that we have. Just building that connection. Yeah. And doulas are not attached to outcomes. Yeah. We're non-judgmental. Yeah. We're people that genuinely want to serve. Yeah. And by being limited to birth, I didn't want to just be limited to birth. I'm like, people need support in all facets,
all aspects of their life. That's incredible, because I was thinking about, you mentioned that you experienced postpartum psychosis, and you had to navigate that. Can you tell me a little bit about what postpartum psychosis is?
You're off your rocker. So, I laugh and I shouldn't, but it's just it was a roller coaster. Yeah. Psychosis. I think it was a few things. It was the brain injury, mismatch in medication, and then feeling completely overwhelmed as a parent with a second child. We had just moved to a new unit in our complex. Yeah. So all of our stuff was still in boxes, and none of my artwork was up. And I just felt like I was in a prison. It was hard for me to get out. Yeah. And so just the combination of all these kinds of things, like I was calling Whit didn't know the signs. Yeah. And I was calling him at work. I was crying. I was setting him up. Like, I was just not myself. And he's like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, who are you? Yeah. So I don't recognize you.
I'm thinking of all those compounding traumas that you're talking about. 2019, you're in a car accident that led to a brain injury and persistent concussion symptoms. You're experiencing this postpartum psychosis because, of course, like you said, you just had a baby. It's a lot just for me to say it. And the family life, you know, the pressures of family life during a pandemic. So,
we were in a pandemic too.
I know. I wrote all that down. I was like, this girl.
Someone's paying attention.
Like, I would be mad too. Like, I would be off my rockers as well. Yeah. So how did Whit then know, like, this is, like, who knew that I need to seek help? Was it you or him? Like,
it was me.
Okay, so you were like, I'm losing my mind and I need to talk to someone.
So it was the break happened when we were moving.
Yeah.
I was in Lockhart was crying, and I was just so frustrated. I remember that I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And I took him and I sat in the bathtub fully clothed. He was still in his diaper. Like I wasn't even present.
Yeah.
I wasn't present. I was just behaving. I was just acting, not acting, but I was a shell.
Yeah.
And I just remember sitting in the bathtub with him fully clothed. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing here? And I like hit my head against the wall, and I felt so out of control. Like it felt like a hurricane going on inside of me.
Wow.
And I couldn't find my way out. I was ungrounded. I felt like I was just flailing in the wind. Like it was so intense. And I called Whit. He was cleaning our old place. And I called him and I said, I feel like I don't want to live. And he was like, well, you're with our kid right now. So like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's like, is our kid safe? And I'm like, yes. And I'm having these thoughts. I'm thinking things aren't okay. Like, I'm not okay. I'm crying.
Yeah.
I'm like, just really not okay. And so I called my doula.
Okay.
And I was like, I think I'm having a reaction to my medication. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I feel crazy. Like I feel agitated and irritated. Like it feels like this monster is inside of me.
Yeah.
And I cannot get it out. Like if I could crawl out of my skin, I would have.
Wow.
It was so
that
incredibly
sounds very intense.
And it's scary because I'm a person who is logical, is level-headed.
Yeah.
And this can happen. And I knew there was a story that a midwife had shared with me that a person that specializes in postpartum mental illnesses or disorders had an intrusive thought visualization of hanging herself.
Oh, wow.
And so and she was also postpartum herself.
Yeah.
And so the midwife said to me, like, this can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It's rare. It happened to my mom. Mom didn't even call it postpartum psychosis. She just said to me that the nurse was coming to check up on her every day.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, the reason the nurse was coming to check up on you is because they were afraid that you were going to do something to us.
Yeah. You were experiencing the same thing that I am experiencing now.
Yeah.
So I want to talk to you a bit about boundaries in relationships before I ask my last questions. I know that you recently set boundaries with your mom and sister due to their lack of acceptance. What was the turning point for you, and how have those boundaries impacted your life?
What kind of boundaries are you thinking about?
So I'm thinking about, when your family is criticizing the way that you have decided to live your life, how they think that you're, influencing your children. And so now I know you said you cut them off. And so I wanted to find out from you, like, what was that thing where you're like, okay, this is the boundary, like, this is it. Like, I'm not gonna be in relationship with you if you're not if you're gonna continue to criticize and want to diagnose me and still want to be a part of my life and my children's lives. It
was that texting conversation where I ended things.
It was the text fight.
It was the text fight. It was a text showdown that that ended things. I blocked them. Oh God, yeah. It was just so obscene. So obscene. And so
from that point on, there hasn't been any communication. And that's sort of like where the boundary is.
This wasn't the first time that mom has overstepped. Like she criticized, I got criticized a lot for my weight in my early 20s. Mom was constantly on me about my weight.
Yeah.
And I cut her off. I said, like, if you don't accept me as I am, then I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And so we have a history of her.
So this was like a long time coming.
In a way, like, so I do have compassion and understanding for her mental illnesses and how radiation has affected her brain and her impulse control.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also need to protect myself and I also need to protect my kids.
That's key.
I'm like, you're an adult. Like, go fucking figure it out yourself. Like, I got a family. I have a brain injury. Whit's going through cancer.
Yeah.
I don't got the capacity to take on your bullshit right now. I need, you know what? There are people in my life that accept me as I am, who I am. And they don't bat another eye. Like, they don't, there's nothing. It's just like breathing, non-binary, whatever, carry on. Like, it's not a big deal. And they made such a big deal about it. Everything's a big deal with them. And, you know,
so everything is always inflated. The emotions are inflated. So I'm looking back at your journey from an abusive childhood to embracing your authentic self. I'm looking at all the challenges that you faced, loss, identity shifts, health crisis, relationship struggle. This is your journey of resilience. Like, it's you know, you have an incredible story. And so I wanted to know today, in sharing your story, what lessons do you hope to pass on to not only even your children, the community that's listening to this podcast, regarding self-discovery and resilience?
Let your freak flag fly.
Let your freak flag fly.
Yeah. Let it go. Like, be you, be authentic. It's messy as fuck. Like, it is not easy. I went through this self-discovery as all these other big pieces are happening in my life. Like, that's so fucking messy.
Yeah.
But what helped me through it? Therapy, medication. So doing the things that supported my wellness is what got me through it. Having people in my life that have experienced these kinds of things themselves, that have grit, that have resilience. We lean on each other. We shine the way for others when we share our stories. And so I want people to know they're not alone. Shit's going to happen. It's going to be hard. You're not going to know what to do. And that's okay. Because sometimes you're not meant to know what to do. What hopefully comes to you is, where's a resource that I can reach out to? And we have been very rich in our friends that have rallied around us, especially with like Whit's part of the journey. But the people that have rallied and been there for me, there's only a handful. But they have changed the trajectory of my life. And I got to, so part of giving gratitude and thanks and acknowledgement was to invite those people that meant something to me to our anniversary, so that we could celebrate together. So that we could look at this like, yes, you're supporting me as an individual, but in turn, that's supporting my relationship. So I really just want people to know, like, you don't have to know the way. You just need to find a resource, find a way to better your wellness. Put the oxygen mask on you first. Like, when people say, like, I put my kids, my mom would say that, I put my kids first. Like, if your dad died, I would never marry again and I would just raise you guys. And I'm like, well, that's a fucking boring ass life. Like, you're still a whole human. Like, you have, like, what can you give from if your cup is always empty? You know? So if they can listen to this story and feel like, you know what? I am feeling like I want to be this or I want to do that, then go do it.
Yeah.
Go do it. Commit to it and just do it.
Just do it. I love how this story started with celebrating freedom and honoring where the freedoms come from, because really freedom is not entirely free.
It's not free.
And so my thing that I have learned today, and I want to bring it back to your statement that you told me or you wrote when we first communicated, is that I want to say that I pray that this episode will allow people to live free, authentic, legit, and full of badassery.
Yes. No, I love that. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
This has been so much fun. It's great.
Thank you.